Everyday drives can seem harmless, but some trips turn into nightmares. In this video, we'll uncover 6 of the most shocking car crash deaths ever recorded. Real events where lives ended suddenly and without warning. These aren't just random accidents. Each case reveals how a single mistake or twist of fate can lead to tragedy. Buckle up as we explore the moments that changed everything in an instant. It was August 30th, 1997, in Paris, France. Princess Diana, 36 years old, had just finished a 10-day trip on a private yacht with her companion, Dodi Fayed. They planned to stay in the city for less than a day. Diana was set to return to London the next afternoon to reunite with her sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, but she never made it home. That afternoon, Diana and Dodi landed in Paris around 3 p.m. They visited Villa Windsor, once home to the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, and then went to the Ritz Paris, both owned by Dodi's father, Mohammed Al Fayed. At Place Vendôme, Dodi stopped by Rapassi jewelry shop and reportedly bought a diamond ring, planning to propose that night. Diana phoned her sons before dinner. Around 9:30 p.m., they tried to eat at Chez Benoit, but left after paparazzi surrounded them. Back at the Ritz, they briefly visited the L'Espadon restaurant before retreating to the Imperial Suite for a private dinner. Just after midnight on August 31st, they left the hotel through a rear exit, planning to go to Dodi's apartment across the Seine. Their driver was Henri Paul, the Ritz's acting security chief. In the front seat was Dodi's bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones. Diana and Dodi sat in the back, not wearing seatbelts. At 12:20 a.m., the car pulled away, chased by paparazzi. Henri Paul accelerated, driving at dangerously high speeds. By 12:25 a.m., they entered the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. Moments later, the Mercedes struck the 13th pillar, spun, and slammed into the wall. Henri Paul and Dodi died instantly. Inside, Diana was critically injured, but alive. She was thrown forward, bleeding internally and struggling to breathe. A passing doctor, Frédéric Maillet, stopped to help. He gave her respiratory aid until emergency services arrived at 12:40 a.m. Photographers continued taking pictures, and 7 were detained. Diana briefly regained consciousness, whispering, "My God, what's happened?" before going into cardiac arrest. Rescuers revived her and rushed her to Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital. By 2 a.m., she arrived with severe chest injuries. Surgeons opened her chest and tried to repair a torn heart vein, massaging her heart for 2 hours. Despite every attempt, she could not be saved. At 4 a.m., Princess Diana was pronounced dead. French officials announced her death at 4:53 a.m. By 6 a.m., hospital staff and the British ambassador confirmed details at a press conference. That day, Prince Charles and Diana's sisters traveled to Paris to bring her body home. Her funeral on September 6th drew millions worldwide. Investigations soon followed. A 2008 British inquest ruled the crash was caused by reckless driving and the paparazzi chase. Tests showed Henri Paul had alcohol and antidepressants in his system, though some questioned the results. French authorities confirmed 2 separate tests matched. Forensic experts also examined the Mercedes, finding no sign of sabotage. Another factor, Diana was not wearing a seatbelt. Doctors later said her fatal injury might have been survivable if she had been restrained. Diana had long feared her life would end in an accident. Friends recalled her saying she thought she was being watched and her calls monitored. She even asked for rooms to be checked for listening devices. On that night in Paris, those fears became reality. Chased through the city by photographers in a speeding car with an impaired driver, Diana's life ended the way she had predicted. She was 36 years old. It was September 30th, 1955, in Cholame, California. James Dean, a 24-year-old actor, had just finished filming Giant. He was already known for East of Eden, while Rebel Without a Cause was still waiting for release. Giant would become his last movie. Though he had only one film out, he was quickly becoming a cultural figure. Dean was young, bold, and mysterious. His sudden death that day would turn him into an icon. That afternoon, Dean was driving his brand new Porsche 550 Spyder, a silver sports car he had owned for just 9 days. He nicknamed it Little Bastard. With him was his mechanic, Rolf Wutherich. Following in a Ford station wagon were his friend Bill Hickman and photographer Sanford Roth. Dean was not just an actor, he was also an amateur racer. He had won races with his Porsche 356 Speedster, but the Spyder was faster and more dangerous. Made of lightweight aluminum, it could reach over 140 miles per hour, but offered little protection. Warner Brothers had banned him from racing during filming, but now he was free to drive again. That morning, he picked up the car in Hollywood. After breakfast, the group drove toward Salinas along Highway 466. Around 3:30 p.m., Dean and Hickman were pulled over for speeding near Bakersfield. Dean was given a ticket just 2 hours before the crash. By 5:45 p.m., they were near Cholame. The setting sun made visibility poor. At the same time, 23-year-old Donald Turnipseed, a student, was driving east in his Ford sedan. As he turned left onto Highway 41, Dean's Porsche approached. Some reports say Dean was going around 85 miles per hour, others closer to 55. Either way, Turnipseed didn't see the low car in time. Dean swerved, but the Porsche slammed nearly head-on into the Ford. The Spyder was crushed. Dean suffered broken arms, severe internal injuries, and a broken neck. He was taken to Paso Robles War Memorial Hospital, 28 miles away, but was pronounced dead at 6:20 p.m. Wutherich was thrown from the car and badly injured, but survived. Turnipseed only had minor injuries and was released after questioning. Roth later described finding Dean's Porsche crumpled into a ball, with Dean still inside. Dean's death shocked Hollywood. His father retrieved his body the next day. Rebel Without a Cause and Giant were released after his death, and he was nominated for Best Actor for both, making him the only person nominated twice posthumously. But attention soon turned to Little Bastard. The wreck was bought for parts. A racer named William Eschrich used the engine, while Troy Lee McHenry took other pieces. Both crashed in 1956. Eschrich survived, but McHenry did not. Later, car customizer George Barris claimed the wreck caused further accidents, including tire blowouts, injuries during exhibits, and even a fatal accident involving a truck driver hauling it. In 1960, the car vanished while being shipped by train. Over the years, people claimed to know where it was, but nothing was proven. In 2020, a part of the car, a transaxle, was found in Massachusetts and sold for $387,000. It is now displayed in Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum in Las Vegas. James Dean's image remains iconic. He became a face of youth, rebellion, and sudden loss. And while his life ended young, the story of his car still lingers, half legend, half mystery. It was November 30th, 2013, in Santa Clarita, California. Paul Walker, best known from the Fast and Furious movies, had taken a short break from filming Furious 7. That afternoon, he attended a charity event for his group, Reach Out Worldwide, which raised aid for survivors of Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines. The weather was clear, the mood was positive, and Paul planned to meet his daughter and mother later to pick out a Christmas tree. But that moment never came. Just 2 days earlier, on Thanksgiving, Paul had posted a holiday message online. His career was thriving. Fast and Furious 6 had broken records, and he had begun producing films. At 40 years old, he was at the peak of his career. The event that day was held at a car shop co-owned by Paul and his close friend, Roger Rodas. The two had bonded years earlier through racing and often competed on professional teams. Paul wasn't just an actor in car films, he truly loved cars. Around 3:30 p.m., Paul and Roger decided to take a short drive in a red 2005 Porsche Carrera GT. Roger drove, Paul sat in the passenger seat. The Carrera GT was powerful, but notoriously difficult to handle. Within minutes of leaving the event, the car lost control. It hit a curb, then a tree, and a light post, spun around, and crashed into another tree. The car caught fire almost immediately. Witnesses, including Roger's young son, rushed toward the flames. Friends tried to use fire extinguishers, but the fire was too strong. Both men died at the scene. Paul was later identified through dental records. Paul Walker was born in 1973 in Glendale, California. He was the oldest of 5 children. His mother had worked as a model, and his father was a former amateur boxer. Paul began acting at just 2 years old in commercials and appeared in small TV roles through his youth. By the late 1990s, he landed major films like Pleasantville and She's All That. In 2001, his career changed forever when he starred as Brian O'Connor in The Fast and the Furious. His role alongside Vin Diesel launched one of the biggest film franchises in history. Outside of acting, Paul had a daughter, Meadow, with Rebecca McBrain. He considered being a father his most important role. He spent his free time surfing, racing, and volunteering. After the 2010 Haiti earthquake, he founded Reach Out Worldwide to bring aid to disaster zones. Investigators later determined the Porsche had been traveling at about 100 miles per hour in a 45 zone. Roger died instantly, while Paul suffered severe injuries and was trapped for about 80 seconds before the fire fully engulfed the car. No substances were found in either man. The crash was caused by excessive speed. Paul's death shocked the world. Vin Diesel and other cast members gave emotional tributes. His daughter Meadow, only 15 at the time, later launched the Paul Walker Foundation to continue his work. She has called him her guardian angel. Meadow also filed a lawsuit against Porsche, claiming design flaws contributed to her father's death. Porsche denied responsibility, but the case was later settled privately. Production of Furious 7 was completed with the help of Paul's brothers Cody and Caleb. The film ended with a tribute. For Paul, fans continue to visit the crash site, leaving flowers and messages. His family and friends keep his legacy alive through films, charity work, and personal memories. Even years later, Meadow shares tributes to her father. On the 10th anniversary of his passing, she wrote, "10 years without you. I love you forever." It was the morning of September 13th, 1982, in Monaco. Princess Grace, once known worldwide as actress Grace Kelly, was preparing for a trip to Paris. She was 52 years old, and it had been more than 2 decades since she had left Hollywood to marry Prince Rainier III. On this day, she was helping her youngest daughter, 17-year-old Princess Stephanie, get ready for school in Paris. They had train tickets and a simple plan: leave their summer home at Rock Aigle, stop at the palace in Monaco, and then continue to Paris. But within hours, the world would learn of a tragic accident that ended Grace's life, leaving behind questions that remain to this day. Before royalty, Grace Kelly was one of Hollywood's biggest stars, appearing in films like Rear Window, Dial M for Murder, and High Noon. Her marriage to Prince Rainier in 1956 shocked Hollywood. But in Monaco, she became a symbol of elegance while living a quiet, private life. The summer of 1982 had been exhausting for her. Her older daughter Caroline recalled that Grace seemed unwell and worn out. Yet, on that September morning, she packed clothes and hat boxes into their Green Rover 3500, filling the back seat. Their chauffeur offered to drive and return for the luggage, but Grace insisted on driving herself. Unusual, since she rarely drove and had mostly stopped after a minor crash years earlier. The palace was about 12 miles away, along winding mountain roads. As the Rover descended a steep stretch of the D37 highway, it reached a sharp 150-degree curve. Witnesses said the car was moving quickly and showed no brake lights before breaking through a wall and plunging 120 feet down a slope. Both Grace and Stephanie were seriously hurt. Stephanie survived with broken bones and neck injuries. Grace was unconscious, with no seatbelt on. Locals rushed to help, and they were taken to the Monaco hospital, later named the Princess Grace Hospital. At first, officials reported only broken bones, even encouraging staff to stay on vacation. In reality, Grace had suffered a cerebral hemorrhage, then another later that day. By the time she was scanned at another clinic, doctors confirmed irreversible brain damage. On September 14, 1982, at around 6 p.m., she was removed from life support with the approval of Prince Rainier and her 2 older children. She was only 52 years old. From the start, questions followed. Why was she driving? Some wondered if Stephanie had been behind the wheel, since she was pulled from the driver's side. She denied this in 2002, explaining she escaped through that door after the passenger side was destroyed. Others suspected brake failure, as no skid marks were found. Stephanie even recalled her mother shouting, "The brakes don't work," but investigators found no defect. Some believed Grace may have mistaken the pedals. The most accepted explanation is that she had a stroke while driving. Doctors confirmed 2 hemorrhages, and Stephanie remembered her mother mentioning a headache shortly before losing control. Still, uncertainty remains. Speculation grew, ranging from rumors of an argument in the car to conspiracy theories involving foul play. Prince Rainier dismissed those ideas as baseless. Grace Kelly's last interview months earlier captured her hopes that she would be remembered not for fame, but as a kind and caring person. Her life ended on a narrow road in Monaco, leaving behind mystery, legacy, and unanswered questions that endure more than 40 years later. It was February 18, 2001, in Daytona Beach, Florida. The Daytona 500, NASCAR's biggest race, was on its final lap. More than 195,000 people filled the stands, and millions more watched from home. 3 cars led the way: Michael Waltrip, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Dale Earnhardt Sr. What no one knew was that this would be the last race for one of the sport's greatest drivers. Dale Earnhardt Sr. was 49 years old. Born in Kannapolis, North Carolina, on April 29, 1951, he left school early to follow his father Ralph, who was also a racer. Dale's natural skill made him one of the most dominant drivers in history. Over his career, he won 76 Cup Series races and claimed 7 championships, tying Richard Petty and Jimmy Johnson. His driving style was fearless and aggressive, earning him nicknames like the Intimidator and Ironhead. Despite his success, the Daytona 500 always eluded him. He had won 34 races at Daytona Speedway, but only captured the 500 once, in 1998, after 20 years of trying. In 2001, he returned not just as a racer, but as the owner of Dale Earnhardt Incorporated. 2 of his drivers were in that year's race: Michael Waltrip and his son, Dale Jr. Waltrip had never won in 462 tries, but Earnhardt believed in him. Before the race, he told his drivers to work together. Whoever reached the front would stay there, while the others blocked the competition. The race began with 43 cars. By lap 20, a crash had already knocked out several drivers. Eventually, Waltrip, Earnhardt Jr., and Earnhardt Sr. settled into first, second, and third. They held that formation for most of the race, with Waltrip leading, Jr. close behind, and Dale Sr. protecting them from the field. On the final lap, everything looked perfect for DEI, but as they rounded the last turn, Earnhardt's black number 3 Chevrolet was bumped. His car swerved left, then shot back across the track and slammed into the outside wall at a sharp angle. Another car, driven by Ken Schrader, struck him from the side. At first, it didn't look severe. There was no fire, no flying debris, no flips. But rescue crews rushed in. Earnhardt was unconscious and had to be cut from the wreck. He was taken to Halifax Medical Center, where doctors confirmed he had passed away from a severe head injury. Meanwhile, Waltrip crossed the finish line, finally earning his first NASCAR victory at the Daytona 500. But there was no celebration. He kept waiting for Dale, expecting him to show up with a smile and a hug. That moment never came. The motorsports world was devastated. Fans wept in the stands, while others sat in silence. Earnhardt wasn't just a racer, he was a working-class hero, admired for his grit and determination. His loss was felt far beyond the track. In the aftermath, One detail stood out. Earnhardt wasn't wearing a head and neck restraint, known as the HANS device. Experts later said it might have saved him. NASCAR responded with sweeping safety changes, mandating the HANS device, redesigning cars, strengthening walls with safer barriers, and improving seatbelts and roll cages. Since then, no driver has lost their life in NASCAR's top series. For Dale Jr., finishing second that day was bittersweet. He later built his own successful career, retiring in 2017. In 2025, he and his sister Kelly produced a documentary about their father, showing both the legend and the man behind it. Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s influence on NASCAR is unmatched. His death, on the final turn of the final lap, became the moment that forever changed the sport. It was June 19, 2016, in Studio City, Los Angeles. Anton Yelchin, a 27-year-old actor known for playing Pavel Chekhov in the Star Trek reboot films, was supposed to meet friends for a rehearsal. He was always punctual. But that night, he never arrived. At first, his friends thought he was just running late. But as the hours passed and he didn't answer his phone, worry grew. Around 1 a.m., they went to his home. What they found was something no one expected. Anton was gone. He had been crushed by his own car in his own driveway. Anton was born on March 11, 1989, in Leningrad, Russia, now St. Petersburg. Petersburg. His parents were professional figure skaters, but as Jews in the Soviet Union, they faced discrimination and strict political conditions. They left the country, seeking safety in the United States. His father later explained, "We were afraid for our son. It was a very bad situation." The family settled in Los Angeles, where Anton grew up. Though his parents dreamed of him skating, he quickly realized he didn't enjoy it. Instead, he found a love for acting. By 9 years old, Anton was working as a child actor, appearing in shows like ER, The Practice, and Curb Your Enthusiasm. In 2001, he landed a breakout role in Hearts in Atlantis alongside Anthony Hopkins. He later starred in Alpha Dog, Charlie Bartlett, and Terminator Salvation. Everything changed in 2009 when J.J. Abrams cast him as Pavel Chekhov in the rebooted Star Trek. The film was a major success, and Anton reprised his role in 2 more films, with Star Trek Beyond scheduled for release just weeks after his death. He also starred in Like Crazy, Green Room, and voiced characters in The Smurfs. He was praised for balancing big studio films with indie projects, and his co-stars described him as humble, curious, and talented. On the night of June 18, 2016, Anton parked his 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee on his steep driveway. As he walked toward his home, the Jeep rolled backward. The vehicle pinned him between a brick pillar and a security gate. The Los Angeles Police Department confirmed his cause of death as blunt traumatic asphyxia. He likely passed within a minute. At first, reports called it a freak accident, but the truth was more complicated. Just 2 months earlier, Fiat Chrysler had recalled over 1 million vehicles, including Anton's Jeep, due to a confusing gearshift design. Unlike traditional levers, this one always returned to the center position, with only small lights showing the gear. Many drivers mistakenly thought their cars were in park when they weren't. By that time, the defect had caused over 200 crashes, 41 injuries, and more than 300 property damage reports. Anton reportedly received the recall notice weeks earlier, but whether he read it is unknown. After his death, tributes poured in from fellow actors and directors. His family later filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Fiat Chrysler. In 2018, they reached a confidential settlement. They also created the Anton Yelchin Foundation and donated $1 million to cystic fibrosis research, a disease Anton privately battled. His death raised concerns about recall awareness. Studies show that nearly half of drivers don't act on recall notices, often assuming the issue isn't serious. Anton's case showed how dangerous those assumptions can be. He was remembered at the 2017 Oscars and in the 2019 documentary Love, Antosha. He was a young man with immense talent, whose life ended not from chance, but from a design flaw that should have been addressed sooner.